So we're going to do a little bit different format today. I'm going to give you some questions, and people in the chat, I'd like you to respond as best you can, if possible. I'm just looking to get some more feedback on where everyone else is thinking, as well as I'll be answering the questions myself to let you know where I feel about it. First question we're going to start out with is, what does government transparency mean to you? And while I let you think about it and type a response, I'm going to briefly discuss the experiences I had over the weekend. This past Friday, there was a candidate forum in Gaylord, Michigan, where me and 3 of the other candidates for House of Representatives answered a bunch of different questions. It was a really good experience. Great. It was great to meet all the different candidates as well as the people of Gaylord and the surrounding communities. The next event like that will be happening in Sault Ste. Marie next Friday. So if you are in that area, feel free to, if you don't know where exactly it's happening or when, you feel free to reach out. I can give you the details for it. Otherwise, there's a lot of other events just like that happening all over the UP and the northern Lower Peninsula. You can find more details on my website in the events tab. But yeah, it was a great experience. I am definitely I'm learning new skills the entire time, which is a lot of fun. And like I said, it was fun to meet the other candidates as well as the people who came out to see us. It was a pretty good turnout. I'd say probably 20 to 30 people were there. I didn't count, so I could be off. Yeah, so I think personally, when I think of government transparency, what first comes to my mind is knowing where our tax money is spent and understanding the financial side of it, as well as understanding what all happens within our government. I grew up in high school, had a single government class, and kind of went off of that single class for the rest of my life until now, other than doing my own research on the side. And I feel like it was barely enough to grasp what all happens within our government. And I feel like the exact goings on aren't always well documented, and they're not always well delivered to the public. So I think another part of government transparency for me is a well delivered information. So as I mentioned earlier, knowing where our money for taxes is going, having a good way to deliver that information is really important to me, so that I know what our taxes are being spent on. And I did look around a little bit, and I've found some third-party sources that go over, where our funding is coming from and what our funding goes to, which is nice, but I feel like that should be a key feature of our government as well. For anyone who just joined, we are switching the format up a little bit. So I'm going to be asking some questions. Feel free to write down your answers or thoughts or any other questions you might have in the comments, and I'll get to them whenever I can. Let's go ahead and bring up another question I had. So go ahead and call it question 2, which is, do you feel like elected officials are accountable to voters or to donors? So I bring this question up simply because there's a lot of controversy where there's a lot of controversy right now with different funding for candidates. That was one of the questions that was brought up at the forum this Friday, is whether or not different sorry, lost my train of thought. I think the question was related to corporations and donations. So I know that's a bit of a hot topic right now, but I see there's a response in the comments, so I'm going to briefly read that. I think simplifying information is important to me. Overcomplicated verbiage makes it hard for people to get into politics on a deeper level. I really agree with this answer. I feel like a lot of times and in a lot of areas of even economics as well is a field that does this, where they'll often create their own verbiage, create their own words to describe something simply to make it more complicated than it needs to be. And delivering information in a way that is easy to understand and comprehend is very important. And yeah, I really appreciate that answer to that question. So simplifying information, yes. Okay. Question number 2, does it feel like elected officials are accountable to voters? I have mixed feelings on this. Obviously, every candidate is going to be different, right? So you can't necessarily judge them all off of the color of one. Or rather the actions of one. I feel like there definitely should be a lot of accountability for each candidate, and they should be accountable to the voters directly. And for me, that was super important when I decided to be a candidate myself. I felt like every time I looked at political news, all of the government, people working for the government, people in the House, people in the Senate, it felt like they were most accountable to their party and to their donors. And that didn't really sit well with me. And I really want to be able to put myself forwards and really be accountable to the people that I want to represent. And that's why I'll be avoiding any sort of large donations from corporations, or even just donations from corporations in general, honestly. Let's bring up another question here. Next question is, should campaign donations be easier to track and understand? So this is in reference to being able to, as a campaign group, you are required to release all of your campaign donations and spending if it's over a certain amount. So I would really, this is in regards to making sure that the donations are visible and whether or not they are easy to find or not. Let's see here. Another, apologies. What have I done? Okay. So I know we talked a little bit about accountability, and I feel like this question directly relates to that in a way. Showing your donations and making it clear where your donations are coming from, who they're coming from, and what they're doing is, I think, very important to me. And I intend to show that off by my own actions rather than just words. So I'd like to show you my website here. On it, I have a tab called Transparency. And this is a list of all of my expenses and donations, easily accessible to anyone who might want to, see where my donations are coming from and what I do with them. I think it's super important to be able to see how people are using their money. I think that should be happening in any federal institution. Especially if it comes to tax money or money that we are donating, I think it's incredibly important that we have access to that information and so that the people can hold these institutions accountable. Let's see, I have another question in the comments. It would be interesting if they had to publish information like how public universities had to publish staff salaries each year. Yes. No, I completely agree with this. And the part of it, the key part, I think, is the accessibility and clarity of that information. Because right now you can go to a website and quite easily find that type of information. You can find the salaries quite easily without too much complication. Whereas if I want to find how much money a donor is spending on a certain candidate, or rather how much money a candidate is earning in general, it's quite difficult to find that. And I guess total number isn't necessarily what I'm most curious about. It would be the amount of each donation that I would be very interested in. So yeah, let's go ahead and grab another question. And feel free to give out any feedback that you want. This is a bit of a test run on how this format goes, and we are constantly making changes. Let's go ahead and plug this one in. So what government information do you wish was easier to access? And so one issue I've found already with this type of format is that I need something to do while I give you time to potentially answer these questions. I do have another comment. Campaign donations and lobbying are the most widely accepted instances of bribery. Corporate interests and PACs have far too much control on political spending and contributions. That's a great comment there. I completely agree. I think that the sheer amount of PAC money and corporate money getting thrown around in our politics is honestly concerning. It shocks me that we're at a point right now where we have no control over how much a corporation spends into a candidate, and we expect that to not affect how that candidate, votes. Every donation is going to impact a candidate in a way, and if a candidate gets 50% of their donations from one corporation, they're going to be extremely biased for that company. So that is deeply concerning to me as well. And I find it very worrying that we are living in a time where it's just kind of accepted right now. And I feel like just now it's being brought up as an issue, and it's been like this for as long as it has. Now, for the current question number 4, what government information do you wish was easier to access? I don't know if I have a huge preference on this. I think it would probably be, how our tax dollars are getting spent. I feel like you could go even more in depth with the specifics. I found this website here, which kind of goes into how our federal government is funded, as well as how it spends funding. This is obviously just one page. I don't know how accurate these numbers are, but 2015 estimate, so that's what we're going with. I do kind of wish the federal government had something like this, where you could interact with the page, click on the different selections to go deeper in depth with specifics. So maybe click on military and defense, and it would give us a rundown of what is costing the most um, within that category. Or, for instance, health. Like, is that Medicare and Medicaid? Like, how much are we spending on each? Where is that getting spent on? I see a link in the chat. Oh, is this the same one? Oh, okay, I see. You put the link in the chat. Thank you. Yeah, so this is a very interesting website to check out. Highly recommend it. Links in the chat. Thank you, Mbot. Very helpful. Okay, so yeah, that would be, I guess, the information that I would prefer to be more available. And let's move on to another question, unless anyone else has comments or questions of their own. Let's go with a tough one. Should there be term limits? I recently got a thing in the mail asking about this to see where my opinion was on it. And I wasn't quite sure where I stood on it at the time. Got another comment in the chat. I think also more regulation around budgets. Even if we know how much is allocated, how do we ensure the money is spent in good faith? Yes. I think having budgets available available to look at is definitely a valuable resource to have available. And like I was saying earlier, knowing where our money is going is super important, and it would also kind of give us peace of mind too. I've got a lot of friends that I know don't really trust our government to be spending our money with our best interests in mind, and that can be a little concerning sometimes. Ensuring the money is spent in good faith. That to me speaks a lot about having the interests of the people in mind when they are spending that money. So instead of using it to increase their own power, they are using it to create a system that is the benefit for everyone, rather than just a few. Shifting back towards the term limits, I personally don't have a strong opinion on this. I would like to hear more sides of the argument, because on one hand, I do think that it is potentially harmful to have, someone in office that is not being effective for a long period of time. But on the other hand, that's why we can vote them out as well. Certain positions obviously might not be a viable option. For instance, I'm blanking here. In the courts, right? Supreme Court, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but those do not have term limits, and they are pretty much in that position for the rest of their life, which seems wildly does not seem like the best way to go about things. I think for the House of Representatives, I wouldn't be against term limits, but I'm not sure if I would say I'm for them either. It feels like a situation where if you really want someone out of that position, then we would just vote them out. But it feels like term limits might just, it feels to me as if it could just be a way to remove people without having to vote them out. And I'd rather just have a system that was easier to make sure everyone has a vote and a say in the matter, and ensure that everyone is going out to vote, and just making it as clean of a system as we can so that when it comes time, it is easy for people to get information they need and to then take action in the best way we know, and that is democracy. I think there's a comment here. I think the most pressing issue, as you said, is an age limit. Yes, I do feel like we have a lot of older people in Congress right now, and that is concerning to me in regards to the current state of our technological world and how fast it is growing and developing. I think there's a lot of new concept and ideas that some people, I'm sure, are very ready to handle, but I know from personal experience that the older generation has a harder time keeping up with the expanding technological world. So age limits is potentially something that maybe we should look into. I do think that there is extreme value in, age. With age comes wisdom. With age comes experience. But I think there are ways to still utilize that wisdom and experience without the possibility of having people die from old age while they're running, while they are actively in Congress. I don't think that should ever be a concern to have, is to have people dying of old age while they're actively working as a congressman or woman. I think the role of an advisory role is very underutilized by our current system. I think if you are past a certain age and still in Congress, maybe you should look for someone to take your role from you. Train them up, make sure they understand everything, and then you can be taking an advisory role. Okay, let's go ahead and give at least one more question. I apologize for the bit slower flow. I will definitely modify this format a little bit more for the next time. I do like the questions. I do like the interaction I'm getting. I appreciate hearing from everyone. And I hope to be able to hear from more people further on. But I guess we'll just have it as the last question. Should citizens need to follow politics daily just to trust their government? So ignore that. It feels like to me that right now it really feels like we have to be watching what's happening in government with a magnifying glass. And that is not something that I thought I would be doing when I was younger. You know, when I was 16, 17 in high school, I did not think that I would be watching our government and waiting for the next thing that they try and pull on us. I would love to live in a world where all I have to do is live my life. You know, I'm an electrician for trade. I currently work full time still, and oh, thank you, Melissa. Let me move this here. Okay. Now we've got the rest of my questions visible. Sorry. Yeah, so I'm an electrician. I did not think that I would be paying this close of attention to politics, much less be running for Congress myself. I'm glad I'm doing it. I'm enjoying the experience, but it is not what I expected to be doing when I was in high school. So I will let anyone who wants to comment, and if you have any comments about the format of the video, ideas on how it could go smoother, feel free to add that in as well. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to add. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and leave off, and hopefully I will be able to see some of you next Friday at the next forum that is in Sault Ste. Marie. And then second week of March, I'll be in Menominee, Iron Range, and Houghton. So look forward to meeting many new people and asking and answering more questions. So I hope everyone has a wonderful night, and I will talk to you all later.